The oxygen sensor drives short-term fuel trim, which drives long-term fuel trim. What the heck does that mean? Well, we're going to begin to talk about fuel control. And fuel control starts wherever you say it starts. It can start at the oxygen sensor or it can start at long-term fuel trim. I don't care about it because it's a loop. It's a closed loop system with no beginning and no end. The oxygen sensor is installed on the vehicle to report how much oxygen is in the exhaust after combustion. The computer takes this to read rich or leaner than exactly what it commanded. The computer makes a fuel injection pulse width command, and then it reads the oxygen sensor's report on how much oxygen's remaining after combustion. And then the computer is going to make an adjustment. The part of the computer that makes that adjustment is called short-term fuel trim, and it's going to be the mirror image of the oxygen sensor. When the oxygen sensor reports too rich, short-term fuel trim is going to deduct fuel. And just the opposite, when the O2 sensor reads lean, short-term fuel trim is going to add fuel. Now the short-term value in the computer drives long-term fuel trim. Short-term reacts immediately in short bursts to correct the fuel. Now, the long-term fuel trim in the computer, it's a part of the computer, a software in the computer called long-term fuel trim, and it watches the short-term fuel trim. And when the short-term fuel trim moves where it shouldn't be moving or stays where it shouldn't be moving, the long-term fuel trim then changes. So the power control module, the PCM, is going to use that oxygen sensor, and that's to determine, was the injector pulse width correct? Did it deliver the correct amount of fuel commanded by the injector on time? If the injector on time was too lean, the computer's going to add additional fuel or add time to the injector pulse width. And just the opposite. If the pulse width was too rich, the computer will subtract time from it. GDI is different. Gas direct injection doesn't use the injector pulse width as much as the port fuel injection system does. Make sure that you view the fuel control volume section so that you'll understand that GDI does it a little bit differently than port fuel. For example, it uses the fuel volume regulator instead of controlling injector on time, and it does a little bit between 5 and 7 milliseconds, but what it's really doing is changing the volume of fuel available at the common rail in order to inject the correct amount of fuel.